Hello, everyone. My name is John Cunningham, and this is the VRARA Bytes Podcast. We're exploring the topic of are we at the tipping point of XR? Now, Malcolm Gladwell defines the term in his best-selling book, The Tipping Point, as the tipping point is that magic moment when an idea, trend, or social behavior crosses a threshold, tips, and spreads like wildfire. Now, XR has been a hot topic for many years, especially recently with the new devices from Lenovo, Magic Leap, Meta, and a promise from Apple to redefine spatial computing with the Apple Vision Pro. It's even getting hotter. But are we really finally to the tipping point where this technology becomes ubiquitous? Now, today, my guest is Vishal Shah, who is the general manager of XR and the Metaverse at Lenovo, and is responsible for the launch of the recent Lenovo ThinkReality VRX. Now, Lenovo's been very committed to the XR industry and has launched a pretty impressive line of products and is very active in ecosystem building. Now, Vishal is a true pioneer in XR, starting around 2012 when he worked for Qualcomm. He has also led product development and sales initiatives with companies such as Atheer, Blippar and MAAV. Now, Vishal and I both share a history as Motorola alumni, where we worked in the early 2000s in enterprise mobility when Moto was a market leader, which has naturally evolved into what we're seeing in XR today. So, Vishal, it's great to see you and welcome to the podcast.
Hey, likewise, John. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the introduction and really appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast. Just a shout out to what you do for the VRAR Association and the VR community in general. I always, say it takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a village and a community to raise an incubation platform like this, right? An ecosystem like this. And you have been an integral part of this ecosystem, both in your previous roles, as well as your commitment to the industrial metaverse, digital twins, and the game engines that go behind it. So really want to give a shout out to you, as well as the VRAR Association. Lenovo has been a very active member of the VRAR Association. Nathan, the founder, used to work for me as well, and he was a big part of launching our brand and our success. So really want to thank you and the association for what you're doing. And I wish you the best for the event next week. It promises to be a stellar event.
All right, thank you very much, Vishal. Really appreciate it. So let's jump into the questions here, and don't answer, are we at the tipping point yet, until the end, okay? Because we're going to bring it all in, and then you'll tell me what's your thought. So first of all, Vishal, what are the technology trends that are driving adoption of XR today? And this can be products, software, tools.
Yeah, so let me take it at a macro level, right? At a 100,000-foot level. If I look at, whether you want to call it the metaverse, whether you want to call it the spatial web, or the internet in 3D, or Web 3.0, I think if you go back 30, 40 years, there have been a few tipping points or a few inflection points when it comes to Web 1.0, which was largely driven by the PC revolution and the availability of ubiquitous Wi-Fi and LAN connections. You saw people now being able to search. You got this whole, eyeball economy that has now led to the internet giants that we have today. And you saw a lot of failures along the internet bubble as well.
Right.
Fast forward 15 to 20 years, we are kind of living through the end of Web 2.0 and transitioning into Web 2.5 and 3. And what led Web 2.0 was the availability of 4G networks, very high data networks, as well as the availability of mobile devices, right? Largely, we moved from a eyeball economy to more of a like economy, being able to have app stores, a gig economy that made that possible. What we're seeing right now is a very fast launch into the Web 2.5, Web 3.0 environment, where the internet is naturally moving to a more 3D environment. If you look at how we interact with people, how we live our daily lives, it's not on an artificial 2D slate. It's not on an artificial rectangle screen, right? We interact and learn in a 3D environment. And what are the inflection points there? So just like we talked about some of the data rates, we're seeing ubiquitous 5G now. You're seeing low latency rates available through 5G. You're seeing these XR devices getting more and more compact, more ubiquitous. And now you're seeing a lot of the content being focused on these XR devices that are becoming more compelling. So I think at the macro level, these are the three big things, three big inflection points that have happened and now are happening in our current environment right now in this decade. Now, coming back to the XR industry, which was your initial question, one of the coolest things I'm seeing right now is the melding of AR and VR with which is now known as mixed reality, right? You've seen our device, the ThinkReality VR, which has full color pass through. You can now go from AR to VR with just literally a click of a button. You can go from full spatial to like a complete immersive environment in a microsecond. So that's one of the biggest things that we're seeing. The second one is just the power of the chipsets, the power of the optics, the way the devices are now becoming more and more compact every 6 months is quite impressive, right? So we are working closely with our partners like Qualcomm, with Corning on our pancake lenses, and we've been one of the pioneers in coming out with the pancake lenses with full color pass through as well. So that's been a very important aspect of what has really helped us. Now, I didn't want to talk about generative AI because there are a lot of generative AI boosters, but XR is about content, right? I mean, it's not about the device, it's about the content and solutions. And we at Lenovo, given that we are very focused on the industrial metaverse and the enterprise XR, we feel that generative AI is going to be a game changer in terms of the ease and the democratization of content. One of the biggest expenses when you try to set up an education program or a marketing program in XR is the 3D content. You know, the lack of skills available, the expensive skills available, the tools that you need. So now with generative AI, where you can go from multimodal input to multimodal output, you're seeing definitely the content creation curve becoming a lot more affordable and a lot faster. So that's the third point. And then the fourth point, I think that's really helped the industry. And I don't know if you were at AWE. I think there's been a natural correction, a right correction, right hype cycle correction in terms of what the metaverse means, right? I think people have kind of adjusted the fact that the metaverse is not this utopian view where everyone's going to wear these glasses in a consumer environment for 8 hours a day. They've kind of, if you were at AWE earlier this year, the shift definitely focused towards solutions in the enterprise. Yeah. People realized that if you look at what happens to the PC market or what happened to the cell phone market, it all started as a mainframe. That's when people were working on spreadsheets, right? And then eventually it became a household item. Same thing with cell phones. I mean, I was at Motorola, you were at Motorola. We had the satellite phones that were, only corporate CEOs and executives and people working in oil rigs had access to those. But that's how the technology scaled down. Email is a perfect example of where BlackBerry was, largely where people used emails to communicate to each other. And now, over the last 5 years, email has been our primary form of contact. So I think this correction and pivot towards the enterprise is what's going to lead the adoption of AR VR, in my view, faster than the consumer AR VR, which is still about a couple of cycles away.
Okay. So what I basically hear you summarize is 1, communications, 2, the devices themselves.
Yep.
3, content creation is getting democratized, and then 4, the pivot to enterprise.
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Now, within the enterprise, what industries do you think are the most likely or the fastest adopters?
Yeah, to me, we at Lenovo, we look at it as a complete end-to-end solution, right? The ThinkReality, for us to scale and for us to help our partners scale, we strongly believe that they have to work with a partner that can come up with a complete end-to-end solution. For too long in this industry, why we've only been stuck in POC purgatory is because companies buy their hardware from one person, they buy software from some enterprise software from somebody else that just throws it over the fence, and they try to integrate, it's at the intersection of IT and OT, and when they try to integrate that, it becomes just a very ominous task in terms of scale. So what we have tried to do is bring this end-to-end enterprise solutions, which are both horizontal in nature and help target multiple verticals as well. Okay. So some of the horizontal solutions that I can think of, if I look at virtual reality with the VRX, for example, is definitely training, collaboration, onboarding. So those are the 3 key areas where hard skills, soft skills, where the expense of losing an employee if he's not well trained and you put him directly on a electric vehicle battery installation plant is just too high, right? So how do you reduce that loss of life, and how do you reduce the loss of time when someone is sitting on the bench? 10,000 baby boomers are retiring every single day, and they are being replaced by millennials, alpha, Gen Z. And these people want a better form of training. They can't there's so much tribal knowledge in our older generation that it'll take months, if not years, to transfer that to the younger generation. And the way to do that is with the right form of training. And our kids, my kids, who are, I call them the teenager generation of the COVID era, they don't like traditional training. They don't like 2D training. They want it gamified. And that's what keeps the retention. So I think that's something that on the VR side, we're seeing a lot of traction on, and it is actually seeing a lot of scale. On the augmented reality side, it's about, I know there's a lot of buzz around consumer and, sort of the glass holes and being able to have some assisted reality kind of form factor. But for us, it's all about the remote worker. How can we make the remote worker safer, more intelligent, faster, and serve the right content at the right time through AI models that will allow him to get his job done faster, reduce the number of truck rolls that are needed for a company, and get home faster to his kid. It's not about replacing the worker. It's about making him or her much faster, much more efficient. So on the augmented reality side, we're seeing two primary use cases. One is around step-by-step instructions in a 3D environment. So making sure that when you do something, you kind of train yourself first, make sure you have all the right kind of spatial anchors, you have the whole script ready in front of you, so that way you're not making any mistake, and people can observe what you're doing, so that you're not, when you're going to inspect a nuclear power plant or fix a turbine, you're not making some mistakes, and you're doing it in the fastest way possible. So that's the first one. And the second one is remote assistance, where you are now being able to tunnel back to an expert and in a different continent, and he or she can help you go through an insurance claim, or you can help you like fix something. So, and the third very exciting one now is 3D collaboration, right? So I'm sitting here, I want to sell a new heart stent to a hospital or someone making a decision at a hospital, and I'm the sales guy sitting in Sweden. I can now move from a 2D environment to a 3D environment, help him walk through the stent, help him really market the thing in a 3D environment in terms of how it helps patients, how it helps the blood flow. So it's a much more visual sale as opposed to, and a visual collaboration as opposed to a more traditional 2D. I'll fly to you and this is how you do it, right? So I think that's where we're seeing the applications. And now, of course, your question started with what are the verticals, right? So I think I feel it cuts across just about every vertical. I mean, education, learning and development, and that's sort of a horizontal that cuts across just about every vertical. Then you have manufacturing, you have heavy industry, you've got in life sciences, we are working with large customers that are using it for their collaboration. When they go into a critical research and collaboration phase, they make sure that they have like 20 of these devices, full backup, so that everyone can be in this environment for these sessions that help them finalize the design. And then in oil and gas, for example, where it comes to safety, where it comes to the digital twin of the plant and training people. I think those are all some of the evergreen verticals that if you have the right horizontal solution and the right vertical ISVs, you can have tremendous ROI.
Oh, that's fantastic. Great response. Okay, last question. Okay, so third question. What do you think the major hurdles are that we still have to overcome for this technology to become ubiquitous?
Yeah, I think one of the major hurdles, and I think the industry is coming around to it very, very quickly, especially on the enterprise side. And if you just leave the device cycle out of it, right? I mean, hardware will get better every 6 months to 18 months. But to me, it's the software and solutions, right? Being focused on the outcomes as opposed to the spec list. Very, very often we get caught in, okay, how much K display is it? How many MIPS do you have? What's the GPU factor? To me, it's not about how many million people are in your metaverse or in your world. It's about how many $1 million can you save a company? What's the ROI? Even if you can save one life, it's a lot more valuable than having 1 million people playing a game on a particular platform, right? So I think there's that dichotomy that people need to understand, especially for the enterprise market, is what's the right solution that you are targeting, and it has to be an end-to-end solution. So that's what our mantra is at Lenovo and ThinkReality, is that just like when we sell PCs or cloud infrastructure, it's a complete end-to-end solution backed by worldwide warranty, by services, by a whole ISV ecosystem. So being able to do that is a very important aspect of getting scale. The other big element to me, is having an open architecture. We're still in the very first inning of a 9-inning game when it comes to AR/VR. And we're increasingly seeing a lot of these players, major players, sticking into a silo when it comes to the ecosystem, when it comes to what kind of cloud you can interface with, right? And coming in terms of how you can monetize it. What we are working with players like Qualcomm when it comes to the Snapdragon ecosystem, as well as adopting standards like OpenXR, WebXR, where our ISVs can ubiquitously move from one platform to the other, and because it's all based on Open Android and OpenXR standards, so that they can monetize it across multiple platforms. And honestly, our customers, because this is so new, they want a stack that evolves with the technology. They don't want to get stuck in a particular cloud ecosystem, a particular major platform player. So we try to make it very open for them, and that's, to me, is a big part of the scale going forward, because we don't want to really get stuck into the Web 2.0 mistakes in the Web 3.0 world. Yeah. So that's the second part. And of course, technology will evolve. The chipsets are getting faster, better. We're using generative AI for content. We're using generative AI for spatial mapping. We've always been using that, but it's just evolving much faster now, as we see this technology, just really scale as well.
Okay, now we're down to the end. So, Vishal, are we at the tipping point for adoption of XR?
My honest assessment is no. And I think it's the tipping point tends to be a little bit, looking back as well. So you have the luxury of putting all the data points together. But if I were to put some of the data points together for XR, I feel that the enterprise market is probably one product cycle away from the tipping point. Okay. I define a product cycle as 12 to 18 months, and the consumer cycle is about 2 product cycles away from the tipping point. But when it comes to connecting the dots, like I said, when 5G, content, generative AI, the ubiquity of some of the and the openness of some of the content across multiple platforms is really helping the enterprise metaverse really scale in a big way. And what you've done in your previous role with digital twins, right, is definitely helping really scale and create huge ROI. On the consumer side, it's a slightly different battle, right? Again, it's going to be the right kind of content, the right kind of killer use case. I think the consumer market is going to have to find this generative AI moment, ChatGPT moment, when it comes to the tipping point, and I don't think they're there yet.
You know what? I completely agree with you. I think that was a great answer. Just because it hasn't reached the tipping point doesn't mean that there's not massive opportunities to go and deploy. I mean, the tipping point really means it becomes just ubiquitous. But we're both seeing major adoptions happening in certain specific industries with the types of solutions you mentioned. So I'm very bullish on the future.
Yeah, and as Lenovo, we get to talk to the top CIOs and CEOs and decision makers just at every Fortune 500 company. And when I talk to them, their number one question is, oh, you know what? I don't want to get left behind in the XR space, because my customers are using it as a competitive advantage. Even though the scale is low, I want to make sure that 18 months from now, I'm not caught flat-footed. So let's start the POCs now. Let's start, at Micron, we're doing multiple factories in Singapore, and now we're doing it worldwide, right? So same thing with Saint-Gobain. So we've got customers who want to now deploy this globally. And when that moment arrives, you're ready to scale and create a competitive advantage, because now they want to sell these technologies and create a profit line out of it so that they can sell it to their customers as well.
There you go. Okay, Vishal, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much, John.
All right, we'll see y'all later. Take care.
Thank you.